Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar. I am Larita McDermott with Unanet's Customer Success Team, and today we're going to cover the topic about tasks. If you have any questions, please type them into the question box on your webinar dashboard, and we will review them all at the end. This webinar will be recorded and will be available online within a week in case you want to review it again or share it with someone else on your team. All of our webinars are located on our Knowledge Center. You can find them by typing the title of the webinar in the search box. If you experience any audio or visual issues, please try leaving and rejoining the webinar or try using a different audio option. I'd like to give a quick recap of the customer success role. Your customer success manager is your main point of contact within Unanet. Our role is to help customers optimize their use of Unanet as well as provide general account support. This includes communication on renewals, new products, events, etc. Please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager for any Unanet questions. If you don't know who your manager is, please contact us at our general email of csm@unanet.com. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter today. We are happy to have Sheila Morton from Unanet University to present. Sheila, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Larita. Appreciate that. So a little bit about me. As Larita said, my name is Sheila Morton, and I am on the Unanet University team here with Unanet, and I am the project management trainer. And a little bit about my path, just so you can put a face with a name and where she came from. I started out as a sailor, and then I went over to support our soldiers in the Army as a defense contractor, and also supported the defense acquisition side of the house. Managed to land myself in the project management world for a while, and then eventually I was able to get myself exactly where I wanted to be as a software trainer, and I was able to come and join Unanet in software training. So that is my passion, to do training for software. So hopefully I'm able to share some good insight with you and my background, that I can share some good insights that you can use this in Unanet in your particular environment. Today, though, I want to share some information about our tasks within Unanet. So I'm going to show what the difference between a project and a task is. And we're going to talk a little bit about projects just so that you are familiar with that. Hopefully you already have some good insight about projects. But I'm going to get specific into what a task is and how we can use some of the functionality within Unanet for tasks. Once we get those in, we're going to talk about how to manage tasks, whether we manage our efforts at the project level or at the task level, and what that means. We're going to work on getting tasks in the database and how do we get them out of the database, as in some of the reports that we can use. We have a really neat feature that came out with our portfolio license, and that's our forecast planning tools. I'm going to show you that planning grid and show you how we use that as it relates to tasks. And then as we work through our project in the life cycle, we always do actuals, and we want to take a look at that in our reviews. So we're going to show you how some of the standard reports in the database lend themselves nicely to looking at tasks, whether we roll them up or we break them out individually. So that's going to be our agenda for today. Again, if you have any questions that pop up along the way, please let Larita know. They're in the question box, and I will do my very best to keep this at a foundations level, but if there are some advanced topics and stuff that come up, I will certainly make sure to let you know where we can find some more information about that. So let's go ahead and get started in projects. So hopefully this is historical information for you. We know that Unanet is a project-based system, and so all of our records in the database have a project code. And projects are really good to support unique budgets. So when you're trying to decide whether you should set your effort up as multiple projects or a single project with multiple tasks, keep in mind that projects lend themselves very nicely if you need to keep your budgets unique for billing and invoicing purposes. Okay, if you want to have multiple projects in the database that represent one single contracted effort, projects is a great way to do that, whereas tasks all pull themselves together under one particular project. I do want to share with you that when you're considering, do I do multiple tasks or do I do multiple projects, there are some configuration items that are specific to the project level. So this includes our administrators. So when we set up administrators under our project, every task that we assign to that project would have the same administrators. So if you had a particular effort where you wanted two different maybe project approvers or project leads in order to work on that particular effort, and you didn't want them to share information, you may want to set that effort up into two projects versus two tasks. The administrators are set up at the project level. The same is true for pay codes, and I'll skip down to locations. So those two are set up at the project level. The expense types, that is also set up at the project level. So if you were to have two tasks that you wanted one to be material and one to be travel, and you didn't want your users to see both material expense type and travel expense type when they did their expense report, or maybe they're different people that are putting those expenses in, you would want to put those in as separate projects. Labor categories, we know that we pull those down from the master list. And then once we pull them down from the master list, then we would set those up actually at our project level. I am going to show you a little tip on the labor categories here in a little bit, but keep in mind labor categories are assigned at the project level. That total value field is at the project level. We have some fields at the task level I'm going to share with you, but total value is at the project level. And then one of the areas for determining who's going to charge what on this particular project, the flags for allowing expense reporting and allowing time reporting, those two are also at the project level. So keep that in mind. If you want to segregate these efforts, then we need to put them in separate project codes. But all things being the same, if we like this idea and we're okay with this configuration, we can go ahead and choose to add multiple tasks to our project code. I like to try and think of tasks as mini efforts within a project. So these are all related items that have something to do with our project code, and we don't mind them all being together. It is a great way to identify a set of work activities. Maybe you have phases of a particular project that you want to work with, or maybe there's a work breakdown structure, maybe there's a milestone, maybe there's small pieces of work that you would like to identify separately underneath your project code. A task is a great way to do that. What's nice about tasks is that tasks allow for this granular management. If you want to manage individual budgets for your tasks, set them up as tasks, and we're going to show you how to choose the box for manage at task level, and then you can put your budgets at the task level and then manage them there. You can set alerts up at your task level. We also have alerts at your project level, but we can set them up at your task level and inherit that information. Billing types, if you have a time and material project as your billing type and you want to have maybe a non-billable task to account for maybe some of the work that you would not be able to charge your client, you could set the task up as a non-billable, but then your project up as a billable. And then when you go to do your billing and invoicing, the system would be able to look at that task billing type and know that that work was not billable. Owning organization as well, if you needed to redirect some of your expenses over to another area, you can use owning org, and then also project type, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. One thing to keep in mind, anytime we have information in the database, we want to get information back out of the database in reference to like a report. Many of our reports, if you're using tasks, have this feature of being able to roll up by your task. So even though you can see them individually broken down, which sometimes is very important to us, sometimes we may want to roll that up. And so we have many of our reports that allow this roll up feature for our tasks. So that's one reason why we would use tasks. Let's talk about a couple of other ways that we could use tasks. Tasks can be used to enforce labor categories. So earlier, I mentioned that there's a tip for you on labor categories. So even though labor categories are set up at our project level, if we were to choose to want to control our labor categories and use tasks for that, we could set our tasks up with the name of the labor category. And then if we managed and reported at the task level, this would be a nice way where we could control our labor categories at the task level. Okay. Oops. Another way that we could use tasks is, say you have a fixed price effort and you would like to have that fixed price effort not bill that particular invoice until a particular status was set at the task level. So maybe you have a fixed price item that you want to make sure you don't bill the customer until phase 1 is completed. And so there are flags within the system under your task that you could indicate that bill upon complete, and you can associate it with a particular task. Now, we talked earlier about configuration settings that are at the project level. I want to share with you those configuration settings that are at the task level. And if you were to choose to override the project setting and bring it down to the task level, the task now becomes the boss. And that is true when it comes to the budget field. So the budget fields can also be at the task level. And if you put those budget fields in, the system will look at that task level budget and use that in your reporting as you're reporting actuals and future assignments when you're looking at maybe your revenue report for your future. Another field is that funded value field. We have a funded value field on the task level. And this allows us to take a look at our funding for that particular task, and it is separate from the project one. We have the alerts that we talked about a little bit earlier. There's a nice little flag on the task screen for your profile that allows you to set the alerts. And we can change the billing types at task. If you have a billing type on your task, it will look at that before it looks up at the project side. Your project type as well. Project types are very helpful in a lot of our reports. A lot of our selection criteria use project type as a way to filter the data, and I think our allocation report is a really good one for that. Owning orgs, we talked if you want to redirect financial charges to another organization within your task, you can do that at the task level. And the one that I like the most is this effective dates. So on the effective dates, if you were to set the flag at your project level that said enforce the dates, that you would then be able to enforce those dates down at the task level. So talking about managing tasks, let's talk a little bit about the ways that we can manage tasks. So this is the profile screen that we would see in the database. And there's three ways to manage your effort within Unanet. You can either manage it at the project level and not have any tasks at all, and we would report at the project level. Or we could choose to manage it at the task level and also report at the task level. And the way that we do that is on your Profiles tab. You'll see that here in the bottom right-hand corner, this project management level. This allows for a good amount of control to the project manager that says, I'm going to tell you where you're going to do your work. I'm going to give you tasks, and I'm going to manage the budgets at the task level, and I'm going to make those assignments at that task level for you. This is one option. And the second option is that we're going to manage it at the project level, which means we're going to be putting our budget fields and our funded fields, we're going to put those at the project level. However, I want to know where my employees are doing their work. So I'm going to set up a list of tasks in the database for them, and then I'm going to let them choose and let them tell me where they're going to put their time or where they're going to put their expenses. This is a really good option for if I'm trying to build a basis of estimate for maybe future work, or maybe I have a fixed priced effort or a cost plus effort and I want to know what type of work is being done on that particular project. This is a great way to do that. So it's always nice to know where your people are spending their time, and continuing to control the project at the project level, but report at the task level is a way that we can create some additional flexibility for ourselves within Unanet. There is one area I do want to share with you, little facts about tasks. So we know that in Unanet, this is a role-based system, and our security access comes through our organizational access. And so the roles that are assigned to us as users allow us to see and or edit different pieces of information in the database. So as it relates to tasks, I want to share with you that the role of project manager we know is a very powerful role within Unanet, and that role can edit almost every field on the project, but they can also add and edit tasks. Some organizations might not want their day-to-day project managers having that role of project manager within Unanet, and you can assign the role of project lead. Project leads can add and edit tasks. So we have the ability as a project lead to go in and set our budgets, some of the information on our task, our hours, and manage that effort from a task side. So keep that in mind if you're trying to determine where my project leads can help manage these efforts and not have the role as project manager. We do know that there are some fields within the screens that are specific to roles. So some of those budget fields and cost fields, there's an additional role for that budget manager in order to have that. So just keep that in mind as it relates to the fields that we see on tasks. There are a few roles to keep in mind as it relates to tasks. So let's go ahead and add some tasks to the database. I'm going to show you on the PowerPoint slides for here, just so I can keep very good control of it and I don't get lost. However, I am going to show you in the system some of the information that I'm going to share with you here. So if you wanted to follow along, you're more than welcome to do that. And if you want to follow along on the screens, that would be fine too. But when we add tasks to the database, we can see that there is a, on the left-hand side panel, we can see that these are the list of all of the tasks that we have in the system for this particular project. There's a couple different ways for us to get tasks into the database. We have some auto options, as I call them. We could import those templates. We have great import templates. Very nice. It has the validation in there as well, so it really kind of keeps you from making any mistakes. You can copy tasks from another project if you want. If there was another project that had similar tasks set up and you didn't want to have to do those manually, you just wanted to modify them. There's also a nice import from Microsoft Project, a nice template with validation that will make sure that it goes in correctly for you. However, today we're going to do the good old-fashioned fingers to keys option. So in this way, I would like to see us do this together if you want. Try and slow myself down a little bit so you can stay up here with me. So there's two different ways. If you don't have any tasks in the database on your project yet, then you'll notice on the far right-hand side, you'll see a little blue task button. And anywhere we see the plus sign in Unanet, it's a pretty good indicator that that's where we're going to be able to add some information. And another example is that if you already have a task in the database, you now will see that individual task icon go away, and you'll now see it show up as one of the columns in your list here. So that plus sign now, and if you were to click on that, it's nice. You can take your task and you can add it above or below, or you could copy that particular task. So regardless of how we press the add button, we have the add button and we get ourselves over to our profile screen. And on our profile screen, I'm going to talk about some of the fields that are really helpful, but if it's a required field, it's going to show up in red for you. And if it's a field that I find really important for you today, I'm going to show that to you in green. So on this tab, the only one that's really required is name. You want your name of your task to be relevant, something that's important to you. And we talked earlier about those overriding fields. So if you wanted to override your financial organization on owning org, or if you wanted to override your project type or set your alerts, that you could set those here. On your budget tab, the only field that's required is this revise date. Now these dates come in from your project settings, and you have the opportunity to modify them here. And what's nice is you can either type in the duration and it will calculate it for you, or you can type in the end date and it'll calculate the duration for you. The other fields that are certainly not required, but if you're going to manage at the task level, then you would want to have information in these fields in order for the reports to show the information properly. So the hours budget, the project lead has access to the hours budget for your labor. And then with those additional roles for bill and cost, you would be able to put in those budget numbers for the labor budget or the expense budget. We're going to skip over to the accounting tab. And on the accounting tab, notice that we don't have any of the required fields, and that is because all of these default down from the project side. However, we do have some override fields that you could choose here. So keep in mind, on this billing type, if you were to choose a project that was time and material or fixed price or non-billable, when you get to your task, those would be the choices that you could choose on your billing type. I want you to keep in mind that cost plus is very special in Unanet. If you have a project that is a cost plus project, by default, all of the tasks will also be cost plus. That is one of the indicating reasons when you might choose to use multiple project codes if you have maybe a cost plus material or a cost plus labor effort and maybe a time and material travel line or something to that effect. You'd have to put those into two different project codes. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this. And then again, on the funded value, if you're managing at the task level, you'd want to put your funded value in there so that you could have that number to show up in your reports. Another nice tab that we have here is the Other tab. So keep in mind, this is my version of the Other tab. These are what we call user-defined fields, and these are set up by your administrator for your instance of Unanet. So your options could certainly be different than my options, but I just want to show you the power of if there is a field that you want to track within your organization that's not being shown here, you can add that to the database. So notice that we use total value because we said total value was at the project level. So this particular instance of Unanet decided to put total value as a user-defined field so that could show up on some of the reports. The other nice thing about these user-defined fields is that they do show up in our ad hoc reports as options. So we could use them and put those on as maybe as a dashboard for our users if we wanted to see that information. Now that we have a list of tasks in the database, I wanted to show you one of the other columns. So we have this little icon that is like a north and south, east and west icon. And this is our move icon. So this has many uses. We can click on this icon and we could take that entire task and we could move it to the top, move it to the bottom, maybe move it up or down a level. But the part I want to share with you is how do you create subtasks? And so this promote and demote option down here in the bottom is how we would create this area here for 2.1 research. I made that a subtask by demoting it and putting it underneath my requirement definition. So that is the way that we create subtasks within the database. Another column to take a look at is these dependencies. So if you have a situation where you want to control that one task is dependent on another task to either finish or start on time, you can choose this managing predecessors option. It looks like a little flowchart icon. And when you select that, it pulls up another edit screen for you and says, well, what do you want to do to this particular task? Do you want to have this task with the type of finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, very similar project management predecessors that you would see for task dependencies. Once you have set those up, you then might want to take a look at all of your dependencies at the same time. So there's another link on the left-hand side menu for dependencies. And in this particular example, you can see that I don't have any dependencies. However, if I had set up a task, my project with multiple tasks with those dependencies, and I click that same button on the left-hand side, you can see at a glance which projects are controlling the next, which tasks are controlling the next tasks. And I can see the dates and I can also see the percent complete. A nice little detailed report for us. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I'm kind of a visual person and I like to see pretty pictures and charts. So there is another option within the database on the far left-hand side, all the way down at the bottom, called a Gantt chart. And you could take a look at that. And if you press that button, you could see that I have a set of tasks, and I can show the period of performance, i.e. the start date and end dates, those effective dates that we saw in the task. If I wanted to drill down into each of these, I could drill down into that and take a look at that particular task. The gray line across the middle would show the percent complete on where I am. Since this particular one I just got started, we'll see that they're all gray. But this is a nice place to come back to and take a look at your tasks in a very pictorial view. Okay, well, I've spent quite a bit of time talking a lot about the PowerPoint slides and stuff for you here. I did want to open up the database and show you some neat things that are in the database. You can follow along with me if you want here. These are some of the areas I want to show you. So we have this planning grid I want to show you for our forecasting tool, and then I want to show you a little bit about the reports. that we have in the database, some of our standard reports, a little bit about our ad hoc reports, and some of the export templates. And we're going to spend a little bit of time with this list detail. I love these configurable columns, and I'm looking forward to showing that to you. So let me go ahead and open up the system here. All right. Okay, so this is a list of my projects in the database, and I'm signed in as somebody who is not a project manager role. This particular user is a project lead. However, I've set a few configuration settings that allow my project lead to take a look at revenue and profitability reports so that they can manage their project. And I have a few projects here that are set up with tasks. So I want to share with you that from this screen, I can see very quickly which projects are managed at the task level by seeing this little check flag here in this column for task level, okay? And the project that we're going to take a look at first, we're going to look at our people planner. I'm going to use this downtown development project that I worked on. And earlier we were talking about here in this list, you saw this in the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to choose this people plans. This came in with the portfolio license, and so if you have the portfolio license, you are used to seeing this. So of course, we always recommend that we set up plans for any particular project. And this plan with grid is the area that I want to show you, which you've probably seen from your project side of the house when you're just working with projects. And so two ways. What makes this task friendly, as I call it, is this opportunity here, this plan view. So this plan view field, as you can see, it defaults to project. But for this particular project, if I want to plan all of the tasks for many people and I want them broken out by task, I could choose tasks for many people. And then, of course, I could also change the grid and I could say, now I want to see every person, and then under every person, I want to see which tasks they can use, which ones I can put them on, sorry. And further down under the grid content, under the display options, here's the other area that's significant for tasks. So we have this show project task date and show project task budget. We have an option for leaf level planning only. So if you were planning your effort at the lowest node of your subtasks, then this would show you your lowest leaf. And of course, if you have tasks as you progress in and you make them inactive, you could suppress those and not put any plans on those particular ones. So I could set this grid up manually, or I could have gone in and used my saved criteria so that I could do it very quickly. And so you can see I used my saved criteria that I had done prior to today, and I'm going to go ahead and look at my plans that I have for this. And so using this view, I have chosen to see my tasks with my period of performance date and my budgeted hours on all of the people for every task. And then in this example, the other direction, if I was to do my people for many tasks and hit my plan tab, I now can see Gus, and I have Gus scheduled to work on milestone 1, and then he moves over to milestone 2 and milestone 3. Okay, the rest of the functionality within this screen is exactly the same as it is with the project side, but I wanted to share a little bit about this from the task side. Now, being the project manager at heart, I do want to share with you this really nice dashboard. The project dashboard is incredible for drilling down into one particular project, a lot of functionality in managing one project. The forecast dashboard at the top, I just want to share this with you if you have not had a chance to see it. You can get to the same type of screen under your forecast dashboard, but the forecast dashboard allows you to see multiple projects across the organization that you have access to. So now if I look at my people planner, notice that it does look a little bit different, but my plan view now is you can see, I can see multiple projects for many people or many people for multiple projects. And what makes this task friendly is this display and matrix. I want to plan by task, or project and task is another option. And then I have those same options down at the bottom. Okay, so very, very powerful feature for you. If you haven't used it yet, please consider that. If you have similar planning styles for all of your projects, use that forecast planner. It's a really, really nice tool for us. All right, let's go ahead and go back over to our project. So I went back to my project dashboard. And then I just want to show you a little bit about the power of this list for these tasks. So here I'm going to go back to my two different projects I might share with you, but on my project list you can see this little icon here next to your project. If you have tasks and you click on that icon, it takes you right to your list. So one more, one less click to get you where you need to go. Nice feature inside the system here. And once we get here on this list, I want to show you this search tab. So you can see here I've got about 4 columns at the top. If I go back to search, I love this page. This page has a really nice configuration that allows you to have multiple columns on the columns that are relevant to you. So as you're getting comfortable and familiar with the fields in this screen, I won't go through all of them with you today, but I will encourage you to take a look at this if you build a project with tasks. There's 2 areas I'm going to show you. I have gone in and created a setup view. So this is a saved list that I created for this one project. And these are fields that I felt were relative to me for setting up my project. So when I took a look at the list, I now have other columns in addition to those first 4. But the 2 powerful little buttons I want to share with you is this double X, that means delete everything at the same time. But if I wanted to edit everything at the same time, I can open up the edit screen to see all of my tasks at the same time. And I now can budget, I can change the dates, I can change the funded values, the hours, those fields that I have access to. So this might be very helpful for me when I'm setting up my tasks and I'm trying to get the plans read and I'm putting it in there and I need to make some modifications and I don't want to have to click into every task and do it. This is a great way to do that particular task. As we go along through our project management lifecycle and actuals start going in the system, we're going to start looking at our EAC reviews, we're going to start looking at actuals and seeing what's happened. If I wanted to see, maybe I have a fixed price task that has a % complete item and I've got 15 tasks that I'm working on and I don't want to go to every single task in order to do that % complete part. What if I was to go to this screen and I changed some of the criteria on the columns and I saved it for future reference and I put in some columns that were relevant to me. So now I'm going to be putting in maybe this hours to complete, my % complete, my complete date, and I'm going to bring in some of the information from my labor assignments. Right? I could choose to bring in one of my user-defined fields if I wanted. And now if I hit the list button, you see I have quite a bit more, which wasn't important to me when I was setting up the project, but now it's important to me that I'm doing the review. And if I did the double pencil, now see how much easier it is to go in and change this information on all of my tasks at the same time. Okay. One area here, just to keep in mind, this user-defined field. If I was to have gone over and chosen this particular one called detailed comments, it was important for this particular client when they set this system up. On the task side, I was able to go in and give that user an opportunity to put in a detailed comment. So that is certainly one option, but it lends itself nicely to a nice little segue for me to share with you the power of the notes. Now, there's nothing super specific about notes as it relates to tasks, but I always try to encourage all users to use the functionality of our notes in Unanet. This is one of the more powerful areas within Unanet. There's so much functionality in here. You can assign these notes to other users. You can let people outside the organization see this note. You can control the note by the status and when it's due. You can create some alerts to it. You can assign it to folks. You have some user-defined fields that are relevant to it. You can add attachments. There's just a lot of functionality within notes. So I'd like to always constantly encourage folks to use notes when they can. Okay, so we talked a little bit about getting the tasks in the database and taking a look at that. Now actuals have gone in, we now need to review the information on a periodic basis, and we know that reports is an area where we can do that. So there are many reports that are significant to, or that are very supportive of tasks, rolling up tasks or breaking them down. So depending on your role in the database, this actually is one, this is a system that has all of the license types. Many of these reports in here have this, have flags for tasks. So I'm going to show them to you, and I want to show you 2 different ways to get here. So under the reports dashboard, if you have access to these reports, mind you, I'm Gus lead in the database. I am a project lead. I'm not a project manager, but my organization has allowed non-cost rate managers to see these project accounting reports. So this is going to lend me permission to take a look at this revenue and funding summary report. And in this particular example, I'm going to show a saved, we know that these are shared reports that my admin created for me, but I made a new one for you today. So we're going to look at this particular project. What makes this task friendly is down here at the bottom under our reporting options. I want to calculate this report using my task budgets. So I put in the bill dollar budget, or I could have put cost, but bill dollar budget and my funded value, I put those in at the task level. And I want this report to calculate that. I'm going to choose actuals and my future assignments through the end of January. And the other area that makes this task friendly is I want to show tasks, and I want to show them individually. I could choose to show them rolled up or show them individually. And if I go ahead and run my report, I can see that this is the one that actually had some subtasks to it. And without, this is not the foundation's information here for you, but this backlog column is the column that you're going to keep track of when you're looking at this report to see if you are over or under what you said you were going to be. It is a very, very quick view to take a look at your project in a very quick glance and see that I am not scheduled. Actuals and my assignments are not scheduled to run me out of money. So I'm leaving money on the table in this example. However, back to my criteria, if I didn't want to see all of that broken down detail, I could go down here to my show tasks and instead roll them up to a higher level. And when I roll them up, now I can see very, very quickly at the levels that I had actually put the dollar values in. So you can see them there. Okay, so that's one of the many reports that we have. I do want to share with you this particular system that I'm using here has a custom link. It's called the right side dashboard. This is your link.xml file within your system. And what my admin did, my administrator went in and created some saved shared reports that were helpful to my project managers. And we created one called Forecast Revenue Metric. If you notice, it is the exact same report I just shared with you. But it is a shared report that my project manager or my project lead was able to get to with one click from the front screen. So keep that in mind. If that's something of interest to you, talk to your CSM and we will show you how to get that, that file and how to modify that. Okay, so wrapping up here, just have a few more slides for you, a little bit of information. As the user, you can get to your ad hoc reports. I just want to share with you that ad hoc reports do lend themselves nicely to the tasks. So if we were to change this to project, we can see that I have an opportunity to see the tasks, and I could take and create an ad hoc report and then put that ad hoc report on my dashboard and be able to see that at a glance from any of my dashboards. And then if you are an admin, as an administrator, if you would have an admin menu here, and under the admin, you'd be able to export, and you could export your tasks if we put that information in tasks. I'm sorry, if we had that, we wanted to export everything, we could. We also, from the front screen, we can export our tasks right here. You don't have to be an admin in order to do that. Okay. So I think I've covered all of the demo features here that I wanted to share with you. As I was collecting information for this webinar, I used our Knowledge Center. Hopefully you will use the Knowledge Center as well. And I came up with a handful of the quick topics that are out there. And some of them ended up in the webinar for you, some of the more fundamental, foundational items. But there were a few out there that I thought were a little more advanced, but I wanted to share that with you so that you could make sure to go out and get those. So there's a nice little PM toolkit out there, and then there's a pretty detailed vignette on task level planning that's out there. And if you were to go to the Knowledge Center and just type the word task in on the search, you will find these quick topics show up very, very quickly for you. So I think I've pretty much covered as much as I can in the time frame that I have here. I did want to ask if, Larita, if we had any questions come through.
Yes, Sheila, we do have a few questions for you.
Are they easy?
I don't know. You'll have to tell me.
Uh-oh, okay.
Our first question is, with billable versus unbillable for direct costs, if tasks are being used, is there a way to limit the tasks by person?
Oh, that's a hard question. Okay, start again.
Is there a way to limit access to task by person?
So asking if that, like, so if I only assign a person to a particular task, is that I don't know if, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. So when we, on tasks, when we do the manage by tasks, we can plan and assign. Assigning is the area that we're concerned with. When we assign a task to somebody, that does control whether anybody else can charge to that task or not, because we've actually assigned and given that work authorization to that individual through the assignment grid. So in that way, I would submit to you that we would be able to limit it. I would probably want to ask a few more questions about that, but it certainly is true that if you assign a user, one user, to a task, that no one else would be able to put any time on that particular task.
Terrific, thank you. Now, what is the best practice for setting up items like various types of leave? Should they be set up as projects or tasks?
Various types of leave, so like PTO. Correct. Or right. Well, I guess I think it would depend on what your organization works for you. But if you, I think traditionally I see most of the time setting them up as individual projects, but I've seen them set up as both ways. I could certainly go back and ask the consultants a little more information about that, so we can maybe put that on the to be answered later list, if you don't mind.
Sure. All right. Is there a way to report on tasks from the project periodic reports?
Is there a way to report on tasks from the project periodic reports?
And if not, are there any plans to add that functionality?
All right. Do we know which periodic report that we're asking about? So the project periodic reports, make sure that I'm showing. Right. So these project periodic reports, the question is again?
That was, is there a way to report on tasks from project periodic reports?
Yeah, so we do have, so if we look at some of our reports, we can see that some of our project periodic reports show by task. So our performance report will show by task. Actually, I have a list. I should have pulled that up. I have a list of the reports that are on this, or on our reports dashboard, that lend themselves very nicely to task showing by task. So I'm hoping that that's helpful to the folks who are asking that question, that we do have some project periodic reports that lend themselves nicely to tasks.
Great. Okay, with an unbillable task, can it be excluded in the data on a billing invoice?
Yes, if you have, so if you have a task and you have identified that as a non-billable item, then when you're pulling that, you can exclude that information on that. That's the nice part about using the project task and the billing type. So even if it's a cost plus, but it's a non-billable project type, you can pull that in when you delineate that over on the billing side.
Great. And is there a way to show my people plans within the columns under the task list?
Is there a way to show my people plans?
People plans. I think I said that incorrectly.
That's okay. I want to make sure I'm in the right place. So under my projects, this people plan here, and what is the question?
Is there a way to show my people plans within the columns under the task list?
So to show what plans are for these tasks, I think is the question. If so, if we took a look at our people plans under list, and we showed the list, we would be able to see by task who is assigned, or who's been planned for this by task. I'm hoping that that is answering the question there, and taking a look at, can I see who is planned for which task?
Okay, and how do you assign by task for charging on a timesheet?
Okay, well, I'm always going to recommend that we start with our plan, that we create plans within the database, and that from our plans, we push those plans over to assignments, right? So for looking very quickly, let me go open up that one project that I was working on. And down at the bottom, we have the button for assign. So I'm always going to recommend that we start with a plan, and we create that plan, we create a baseline, and then we push the assignment button to go over to the assignments. You can see that I've already created the assignments for these particular folks. So that is one way in order to do it. That's the recommended way, is that we use our planning grid to push the assignments over. And when we do that, whatever we plan is going to come over to our assignment side. And this will take a copy of our plans and create an assignment for us to start using for the employees to start putting on their timesheets. Once we create assignments and we push, if I was to push that, now these are already existing because I've already done it, but had I gone, I could have notified folks and hit on the save button, and it would have gone over here to our people assignments. Again, I have that same functionality to take a look at the list. These are the people that have been assigned. So these people's timesheets will now allow them to see this task so that they can charge their effort to it.
Do reports calculate rolled up totals for subtasks or for projects?
Do the reports calculate rolled up totals?
For subtasks.
I'm hesitant to answer the question because I'm not sure where they're putting their budget fields. So if they populate their budget fields at those subtask levels, and then we're reporting at a higher level, I'm not sure that it would roll itself up that way. But if wherever you're putting your budget fields is where it's going to roll up to. I'd like to follow up.
If you would like to clarify your question, feel free to send a chat or to re-ask in the question with a bit more detail.
Yeah, and I'm happy to get on with the CSM afterwards on any of these that came across. If I'm not able to, provide a proficient answer for you here, I'm happy to work with you afterwards.
Okay, so can the same task fall under more than one project organization?
The same task fall under more than one project org. Okay, so if we take a look at our projects to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. So if I have this particular task, is the question, can this task show up under more than one org? Okay, and so, and if that is the question, this is a one-to-one relationship, so the answer would be no, that this task would only be allowed to show up under this org. Now, if you left this, say this org was XYZ, XYZ, but then the project is under a different org, you would be able to run a report that shows that you have one task that's under, that has one org, but it's assigned to a parent one. So it could be two, but it is a one-to-one relationship on that field. And then if it's the project, and so I'm going to make sure I understand which org they're talking about. If it's the project org, which is traditionally we call that the customer org, where who actually is doing the work, who you're doing the work for. The project org, that is a one-to-one relationship. So the project and all the tasks associated with it belong to the same project org.
And how would you use tasks for projects with multiple years but only funded for 1 year?
That is a very good question, and I know I'm not going to be able to answer it easily in this call. I will ask to take that one offline.
Sounds great. Concerning management at task level, what if selected the wrong one and have to change mid-project? I get a warning that it will delete information.
Correct. I have seen that. So if you are asking for it to be, I have to log in as an admin over here on this to see that. Give me half a minute. Let me get myself over here.
Okay. Looks
Yeah,
like we have,
That's okay. I was trying to get over there quick enough to show them on that, that if we were to change this, this is the warning sign that you see. And so I had this manage at task level, and then I changed it. I decided I didn't want to manage at task level anymore. So all of the people assignments, they're going to be deleted. So if you have your plan, and the reason is that because as soon as we remove that flag that says we don't want to manage it anymore, we now cannot put the assignment at the plan or at the assignment level. So now only the timesheets are going to be there. So this is a relevant, and this is a realistic error, not a realistic message for you, that you need to know that if you do change that, it's going to delete those assignments. But you can recreate assignments really pretty easily if you have your plan. You know what the plan is, the plan, right? So we put our plan in place, and then go back to your planning grid, and then just recreate your assignments from there. Okay, and in project management, I do teach people all the time that we don't look back, right? Once actuals are in and we've done actuals, then we really only care about the future. So whatever those future assignments are. So the assignments that are going to be deleted are those that have not been done yet, you know, the work that has not been yet, completed yet. So depending on where you are in your project life cycle, when you make this change, that's all it's doing is it's taking your assignments and it has to remove them because it doesn't, you know, you're telling the system, I don't want to use tasks anymore. So hopefully that answers the question there. I do apologize, taking a little while to get over there, but hopefully this was helpful.
we had a yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
So I think you successfully answered that question.
Great. I ran into that myself a few too many times.
Everybody, thank you all for your questions. Any questions that we didn't address or that you would like further clarification on, please feel free to contact your customer success manager. We'll make sure we get those answered for you. And any that you have asked in our question box that were not answered today, we will get that information back to you as soon as we can. And this here is our customer success management team. Again, our goal is to help you reach your business goals. If you're not sure who your CSM is, please email csm@unanet.com and your customer success manager will contact you. Thank you, Sheila, again for the great content and Q&A. Once again, everyone, this webinar presentation will be available within a week. And for those of you who have questions we didn't get to, you should see those responses soon from your CSM. Thank you so much for joining us today and have a great day.